To continue cooperation with the International Monetary Fund, Ukraine must carry out the pension reform, reduce the number of civil servants, strengthen the fight against corruption, and open the land market, according to the organisation. The current stage of cooperation is characterised as a so-called third review stage. In case of its successful completion, Ukraine will receive the fourth tranche of financial aid. The extended funding programme provides for a loan of over $17 billion. Ukraine has already received the first tranche in the amount of $5 billion, the second $1.7 billion, and the third $1 billion.
Well, as you know, we have been engaged in a program which is called an Extended Fund Facility, which is a 4-year program which was approved in 2015. And over the course of this program, we have seen some positive steps, in particular on macroeconomic stabilization.
In Ukraine, the progress in macroeconomic stabilization is the most noticeable. It was extremely difficult to achieve that given the conflict in the country's east, which continues to this day. Also, there have been significant shifts in fiscal and monetary policy. The regulator, who introduced the basics of inflationary government, had an important role in that.
We have seen a lot of progress on macroeconomic stabilization. We have also seen a lot of important changes which were needed for a long time, in particular in the energy sector. Of course, this has implied an increase in gas and heating tariffs, which was important for many reasons.
На сьогоднішній день ключовими питаннями, які є в цій програмі, це є питання пенсійного.
Today, the key issues of this program are those of pension reform, which should provide long-term stability of the Ukrainian budget system, land reform, removal of unconstitutional moratorium on the sale of agricultural land, and the increase of efficiency in the fight against corruption, which means the creation of an independent anti-corruption court and letting NABU trial the suspects in corruption crimes on its own.
Забезпечення права Національного антикорупційного бюро самостійно прослуховувати підозрюваних у корупційних злочинах.
Ukraine's cooperation with the International Monetary Fund and other international partners is extremely important in several respects, says the Deputy Minister of Economic Development. First, it is the macroeconomic stabilization. Ukraine has overcome the difficult phase of fighting the consequences of reckless economic policies of the former executives to stabilize the currency and, at the same time, accumulating huge forces to combat armed aggression and increasing spending on the country's defense.
І, звичайно, в цих умовах досягти того, що ми припинили економічний спад.
And of course, stopping the recession and starting economic growth in such conditions is a great achievement, and we wouldn't have been able to do that without the cooperation of the International Monetary Fund and the helping hand that the international community has given to Ukraine when it was needed. The cooperation with the IMF is also important for future economic growth of the country, and it is what the Ministry of Economy is taking care of. In turn, the International Monetary Fund carries out an independent reform evaluation.
Ця співпраця надзвичайно важлива, тому що вона йде в паралельно з...
The cooperation is extremely important because it is parallel to the reform program agreed with the IMF. The experience and help of our foreign partners in the implementation of sometimes difficult and painful but important changes which relate to, for example, to bringing the gas tariffs to market level, specific actions on the plan of corporate governance of public enterprises and privatization, a variety of complex actions on deregulation and creation of a better business environment, both for domestic and foreign businesses.
Середовище як для вітчизняного, так і для іноземного бізнесу.
Часто про МВФ говорять, що це є така дуже...
It is often said that the IMF is very narrow in its understanding organization, which is interested only in the prevention of budget deficits and money printing. Actually, when we look at the current program of cooperation between Ukraine and the IMF, it is obvious that the IMF is trying to solve the problems that lead Ukraine to constantly take loans from the IMF.
І призводять до того, що Україна постійно змушена брати кредити в МВФ.
The mission will decide granting Ukraine the fourth tranche of financial assistance in the near future, says the IMF resident representative in Ukraine. Earlier, the National Bank expected to get a loan of $1.3 billion by the end of 2016.
We are discussing at the moment how we can progress on the third review of the program. There has been some progress which has been made in a number of areas. We still need to complete a few discussions.
Another important element that Ukrainian officials and the civil sector should focus on is the fight against corruption. Multiple foreign institutions insist on that, and despite the fact that several important steps have already been made, these efforts have to be sped up, as was noted by the fund. The creation of a National Anti-Corruption Bureau, which is already operating, and the introduction of e-declaration are undoubtedly successful directions.
There has been a reform of the judicial system. It's going to take some time to show its effect. In the meantime, we see that there is a need to deal more rapidly and with some of these challenges, and that's why we, together with civil society, have been supporting and other donors as well, supporting the idea of a creation of an anti-corruption court.
If we combine all these efforts, they will allow the Ukrainian economy to develop steadily and dynamically, and finally get out of the vicious circle of economic ups and downs which were pursuing Ukraine in the past. When the economy is on the track of stable growth that will be strengthened by both internal and external investment, a wider range of population and companies, including small and medium businesses, will have more access to economic prosperity. So it is very important for Ukraine to keep following the reform path, receiving foreign investments and becoming a more successful European country.